Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be just talking about some of my honorable mentions of books that I read in 2023 that are my favorites. So I couldn't add more to the 15. I wanted to, but I just couldn't do it. So these are just in no particular order. They're just ones that I really wanted to put on, but for one reason or another, they just didn't make it onto my favorites list. Specifically, some were repeat authors, and I have a rule about that. I want to be fair with my favorites list at the end of the year, but also there was one reason or another why I just didn't do that. And it was really hard to make my favorites list because some I just really loved. So, but without further ado, let's just get into the books. I only picked out 10. There's more that I could have put on this list, but I just kept it to 10. So let's get into the books. And so the first one I want to talk about is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. A Court of Mist and Fury is my favorite book of 2023. But it wasn't my favorite book of the ACOTAR series. That one has to go to A Court of Silver Flames. Like I said in my favorites video, Court of Mist and Fury is the perfect book in the series. However, I loved Nesta's character growth and her character arc in A Court of Silver Flames, and I love Cassian. I like Rhysand more, but I love Cassian a lot. I like Nesta, her character growth and her arc. When we see her in A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then her going in, and then that scene in A Court of Mist and Fury, where she's flipping people and things off, and then everything that happens afterwards, after that one particular scene with the cauldron, and then everything that happens. And I really love the PTSD representation in this book. It was very well done. I appreciate that a lot. And she went from a character that I could not stand in A Court of Thorns and Roses to a character who I actually sympathized with and who I could root for and who I empathized with in A Court of Silver Flames, and who I rooted for, especially with her romance with Cassian, because I wanted her to get her HEA with him. That's why it ended up being my favorite book in the series. But like I said, it wasn't the perfect book. That's why I had to give it to A Court of Mist and Fury, but I have to put it on this list as an honorable mention because it is my favorite book in the series. The next one, I had this on my list a bunch of times, but I took it off, but then I put it back on, but then took it off, and then ultimately I only had 15 spots, but it is On Thin Ice by Ellie Cotton. I actually received an arc of this, and it is a sports romance that's, I think, new adult. And this is grumpy, broody hockey hero, and I think this was enemies to lovers, or at least rivals to lovers. Mason at the beginning assumed a lot of very bad things about Harper. He thought she was a puck bunny, when in fact she's actually the coach's daughter, who she doesn't have a relationship with her dad. There's really, really good representation of celiac disease in here that was explored throughout the book. One of the things that I really, really appreciated was his relationship with Scotty and Harper's relationship with Scotty. Scotty is Mason's younger brother who's autistic. He's level 2 on the spectrum, and he says some really interesting things. Scotty doesn't understand social cues. He says some really funny things about Harper because he has a crush on Harper. That's really highly inappropriate. But I understand that, again, autism. So anyway, I really, really enjoyed the dynamic between Mason and Harper. I enjoyed the way their push and pull. I enjoyed the writing. The writing was very well done. This book was really solid. I had to give it 5 stars. I did get the audio arc, which was the narrators were Teddy Hamilton and Stella Hunter, and they did a phenomenal job with this. Yeah, I loved this book. This was my favorite in the series, and I did pick up this author again, and I would absolutely pick up this author again in the future. She's done a fantastic job. Absolutely had to put this on my honorable mention. It was so close to being on a favorites. Another one, and this one was because I had to choose between one or the other, and this one is Identity by Nora Roberts. I had to, it was between Inheritance and Identity. Identity is romantic suspense, but I had such a good time with Inheritance. I just couldn't, I had to go with Inheritance on my favorites list, but Identity is about Morgan Albright. She was an army brat. She was trying to find roots. She found a friendly neighborhood in Baltimore, had a really good friend that she was rooming with until she met this guy. She started dating. He was actually a con artist named Gavin, who was also a serial killer. He would take the identity of the woman he killed. He would target women's names that were androgynous that he could assume. He'd take their identities and live off their, would steal their identities, drain their bank accounts and stuff. Her friend was homesick when he went in to steal her identity before he could kill Morgan. And her friend ended up killed instead, and Morgan survived. So then, so yeah, the story goes on from there, and Morgan has to move on with her life, and she starts getting hunted by a serial killer. It was really, really good, and I enjoyed it. Nora Roberts writes really good romantic suspense. And the next one I want to talk about is Shadows of You. This is book 4 in Catherine Cowell's Lost and Found series. This is Roan and Aspen's story. You can read them as standalones, but I highly recommend that you read it in order to understand the characters' motivations and to see how they develop throughout the series. So Roan was attacked, and it was unprovoked because people thought he was responsible for what happened in book 1. And Aspen is running from something that happened to her sister, and she has a daughter she's trying to protect her daughter from what happened to her sister. And Roan falls for her and her daughter, and he has to protect Aspen. This book is so well balanced between the romance and the suspense plot. It was like she gave equal amount of page time to the suspense, to the romance, to the main characters, and to the side characters. It was just like, I just felt like this was just one of her best works yet. One of the things though that I loved was when Roan falling for Aspen's daughter was just so endearing. To me, this was one of her best books. The thing that made me love Echoes of You more so than Shadows of You was that Echoes of You made me love A Friends to Lovers, and that just never usually happens. This one was just perfect in every way for me, but it didn't do what Echoes of You did, which made me love something that I normally wouldn't love. So that's why I had to give it to Echoes of You, whereas this one was just wonderful. So I highly, highly recommend Shadows of You. Next one, same situation, is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. I gave it to Real because you could give Real to anybody and they could read it and love it. Whereas with Long Shot, not everybody could read the beginning of this book, the beginning to the middle of this book, because what happened to Iris on page. There's some really dark stuff on this page, so always check trigger warnings. The thing is I loved August and how he was there for Iris and Iris's daughter. And I loved the development of their love story. I loved how he was protective over her, but he gave her autonomy when she really needed it. And he was protective over her when she needed it. And to me, this was such a beautiful love story, despite what happened in that one period of time in the narrative. Kennedy Ryan can write such a powerful romance. I highly, highly recommend this book. But if you cannot handle those trigger warnings, I would say do skip this one. But if you can, I highly recommend it. That is why Real made it and Longshot didn't. But yes, this one is worth it. So then my next one is After the Storm by Laura Pavlov. This is book 5 in the Cottonwood Cove series. This one was honestly a surprise for me. I really liked this one. It was Cage and Presley. Cage is a single dad to Grace. This is second chance romance. Cage and Presley were in love with each other, and it was sort of the wrong side of the tracks. Cage was the poor boy, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. Both were very stubborn. This is right person, wrong time situation. And they made decisions that kept each other apart. They also were very hot-headed with each other. Not in a domestic abuse situation, but like, I'm mad at you and I'm going to not forgive you sort of a situation. When things happened, they would just react instead of act, which caused their initial doom. But once they got back together, they just knew that they could never be apart. And I loved how they worked on it together, and how Presley was going to always be there for Grace. And Presley knew the one person for her was always going to be Cage, and she still went ahead with her wedding to the one guy that she should not have married, and she did it anyway. And I'm just like, she did something the night before she got married to basically memorialize her relationship with Cage, right? She should have never walked down that aisle, okay? But in the end, this was a perfect small town relationship, and I loved it, the Grumpy Sunshine romance. It was a perfect second chance romance, and I loved Cage's relationship with Grace and Presley's relationship with Grace. I love how Grace pushed Cage to go after Presley. It was perfect. Grace was not the child cardboard cutout. She had personality and she was cute, and it worked. This really worked for me, and I have to give it an honorable mention. Another one, and it is The Notorious Lord Knightley. Oh my gosh, like, you need to read this. If you like historical romance, you need to read this. I know Christi from Christi Reads a Lot has been talking about this, and I know that Tori from Novel Life just read this and she loved it. It is Regina, and holy crap does she hate Knightley. Ooh, and there's a reason why she hates him, and it's a very legitimate reason. I am not going to get away. You need to go into this book blind. The best way you can go into this book is blind, and you just need to read it. She wanted to punish him, and boy did she punish him, and she did it well. I will say she wrote this story about this guy that was so notorious, that was such a scoundrel, that it caused tongues wagging in the town, and it caused the Lord Knightley a lot of grief. And yeah, this was such a good second chance romance. There was so much drama. This was so messy. It was so freaking good. And the only reason why I did not put it on was because of that Scarlett Scott book, and how much of a perfect enemies to lovers book that was. If it wasn't as, and because I only had 15 spots. I only had 15 spots. If I had more, this would have been on it. But I loved this book. This book is so good. I went out and bought a copy right away after I had read this. Because I had to have this on my shelves. This book is that good. This one, you need to read it. Just trust me and trust Christi and trust Tori. You need to go read this one, okay? If you read any of these on this list, go read The Notorious Lord Knightley. Trust us. The next one I want to talk about is Six Scorched Roses. I read this one in December. I could not believe how Carissa Broadbent could write a complete romantic fantasy in a novella-length story, in a novella-length book. I'm like, it blew my mind. This one is about Lilith, who has been dying since she was a little girl. She goes to see this vampire who's a mysterious guy, makes a deal with him to give him these roses that never wilt, never dies, for vials of his blood to try and save her family and her people, because the only thing that grows on her land are these roses. And she unravels these mysteries while she falls in love with the vampire. And I loved it. This is in the Crowns of Nyaxia world. I've only read The Serpent and the Wings of Night. That's the only book I read in that, and I gave that one 5 stars. That one was really, really good. And this one told such a complete and gorgeous romance. I was so blown away by it. Listen, if someone can actually sell me on a romance on a novella length, that is some damn good writing, okay? She did it. Carissa Broadbent did it. So absolutely, that is worth it. And they just put it out on audiobook, and it's on ebook, and you can get the hardback and the paperback, so there you go. Next one was part of a read-along, and it's Blame It on the Tequila by Fiona Cole, and this is book 2 in the Blame It on the Alcohol series. And this one is they were step-siblings when they were younger, when they got together, and now he's a rock star and she's a songwriter. After having a falling out, they ended up reconnecting on social media by a chance encounter. Parker and Nova never got over each other. Anyways, so Parker's band needs someone to help write songs, and so Nova ends up going on tour with them, and it opens up the whole emotional wounds that were never fully healed after what happened in their past. And it is so good. It is messy, it is soap opera-ish. I loved every single minute of it. It was like crack, and I just I've listened to this one a few times. It's so good. This is my favorite in the Blame It on the Alcohol series. This one's just so good. I would recommend this one. It is one of my favorite ones. Is one of my favorite Fiona Cole books. So I would absolutely recommend this one to anyone who wants to have a good time, who likes Friends to Lovers, who likes Rockstar, who likes a little bit of messiness in their romances. So good. The last one I want to talk about is In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. This one was a surprise to me. I was not expecting to love this as much as I did. This was very emotional. Second chance, because they knew each other when they were younger, and it was Marriage of Convenience. So if you're looking for a good marriage of convenience and you want to do something that's contemporary, not historical romance, here's one for you. Single dad, because he has guardianship over his very sassy and unique niece. She swears like a sailor. She has trauma because of what happened with her mother. I love that niece. Oh, wow. I love that niece, Jenny. She is one of the best child characters I've ever read. Our heroine, Shay, she gets left at the altar from her piece of crap fiance, so she needs to run off. So she goes back to Friendship, Rhode Island, and that's where she meets or reunites with our hero. And that's where she meets Jenny, and she's a teacher, and she helps Jenny with her schoolwork. That's where Shay and our hero, Noah, end up building their friendship and end up having a romance, and they end up becoming a family with Jenny and helping Jenny through a lot of her trauma. And yes, Jenny swears like a sailor because of what happened, and I love that little girl. I love this book. It was so well written, so well paced. Listen, this book is just something that you need to experience. So yes, it needs to be an honorable mention. Yes, and like I said, if I could put more on my favorites list, I would have put more on my favorites list. So I made an extra video because I really wanted to talk about these books because I felt like they should be talked about. Anyway, so those are some more favorite books that I had from 2023. If you have any recommendations for me from what you read in 2023, please let me know down below. If you've read these and liked them, please let me know down below as well. And if you made it this far in this video and you want to let me know that you've been here, please leave me a disco ball emoji. And until next time, my friends, happy reading. Bye.